Howdy everyone, this is Dwight and welcome back to part 4 of this series on how I make a basic slip joint pocket knife. Okay, we're going to pick up basically where we left off in the last video. I have went ahead and got a 400 grit finish on the open square part of the tang as well as the tip end of the back spring. So that is now, I have that as my 0 now. And if we bring it up to half stop, we're a little over 30 thousandths proud, as well as the close position, a little closer to 35 thousandths proud. So I'm needing to take a minimum of 20 thousandths off to get within a 10 thousandths proud goal range to begin final fitment. Now, I'll turn this around. A couple things I want to mention before I take this over to the belt grinder. Since this is going to be a decent amount of material I need to take off, you guys that run closer to your patterns shouldn't have this much material to take off. But where I'm going very loosely, I kind of go loose and fast, so to speak, I have a decent amount of material sometimes to take off. So when that happens, I want to take the material off the closed position as well as the half stop position, going back and forth as I work the needle down to my goal of 10 thousandths proud. The reason for that is, it's obvious there's a curve in the closed position. I got a subtle curve in the half stop, which means that it's solid against the back spring with no loose slop. Anytime it moves, it's immediately pushing against the back spring. There is no little wiggle slop. See, every time I wiggle it, that needle's moving. Okay. I'm also looking to see how my blade is setting. Is it coming up at a reasonable 90-degree angle compared to the handle? Because personally, I don't want it cocked backwards. I don't mind it cocked inwards ever so slightly, but the goal for me personally is to get it reasonably close to the 90-degree and it's in a half stop position. If I only took material off the half stop and then took material off the closed in drastic amounts, since there is a slight curve on this, I would be taking material off of this bottom corner, which then in turn would be bringing my blade inwards and moving my needle. I would be losing material, even though I'm only taking it off the bottom. That is for if I'm taking a drastic amount of material off. Like 20 thousandths of material, it might not show horrendously, but it will be noticeable. And in this position, I'm really close to 90 degrees. I actually want to have my blade inwards ever so slightly, because once again, as I mentioned, when I put the back spring under tension, it's going to change the geometry of it. We're going to get a curve in it, which that curve will push the tip outwards, which is doing the exact same thing in the closed position. It is pushing the tip upwards, because the walk, instead of being fairly good horizontal, is going to be angling downwards ever so slightly. So that's some things to keep in mind working the half stop and the closed position inwards. We'll go over to the belt grinder real quick and I will show you what I'm doing, and then we will go from there. Okay, once again, I have my grinder in a horizontal position and I have my Warren 120 grit belt on. To get this curve for the closed position, I'm going to be doing that at my small wheel, the upper wheel. To get my slight curve for the half stop, I'm going to be coming in at this corner on this larger wheel, because I just want that curve. I want the half stop curve to be more subtle. And again, I'm going to be taking material off here and taking material off here, and I will be checking it really often on this to make sure I'm not taking too much material off. So I keep this handy. Whenever I get this down to the 10,000 range, I will come back and I will show you what I have. Okay, I'm back from the belt grinder. I got the half stop and closed positions down to 10 thousandths, and then I went ahead and slowly worked them down to where in both positions I am at about 6-7 thousandths in the half stop and maybe 6 thousandths in the closed position. Once again, turn this around. The closed position, one thing to look out for is to make sure you don't get your blade too close to the back spring. This right here isn't too bad, but I'm not worried about it because I'm going to be taking a little material off because I have yet to clean the inside of that up. So I'm going to widen this gap out somewhat, so I will have a little bit more room. Otherwise, whenever it closes, you can get what they call blade wrap, which means whenever it closes, the blade edge comes down and hits the inside of the back spring. And you will notice that, especially once you sharpen the blade and so on and so forth, you'll get a line along your back spring where your cutting edge is coming down and hitting it whenever you close it. Also will dull your knife as well. I have my half stop. I believe you can tell I have it cocked inwards and looking forward for whenever the back spring goes under tension, because it will push the tip outwards. Of course, same in the closed position. I have plenty of room for the blade to raise some, which will also widen that gap. So now the next thing I need to do, as being that was just a worn 120 grit, is I'm going to go back with my worn 400 grit. I have not radiused the corners any yet, so I will go back and I will put a very small radius on each of the corners because right now they're actually rather sharp. In doing that, my goal on this knife is to be proud 3 thousandths of an inch above zero. If I am 3 thousandths on this particular pattern that I'm used to doing, if I'm 3 thousandths proud above zero, then when I put the blade under tension, it will be very close to being flush in all three positions. There will of course still be a little bit of handwork I will probably need to do in probably the half stop position to finish it out being flush. I'm used to this pattern, so I know about 3 thousandths. I can get away with it. I'd recommend closer to 5, especially on a pattern that you're not used to, and then finish it out by hand. Of course, if you have, this is called a Rupel jig. If you have what they call a Kennedy jig, you can put the pattern under tension on that jig, and then you can use that jig to zero it on out. If all you have is a Rupel jig, you need to leave yourself, well, I would recommend 5 thousandths, and then you assemble the knife, see where the back spring is at, and disassemble the knife, take some material off, reassemble the knife, see where your back spring is at, and that can take some time. But with this, I've learned 3 thousandths proud gets me fairly close. Okay, we're back from the belt grinder. I have the 400 grit belt finish on the edges. I've rounded my corners off a little bit. So let's take a look and see where we're at. The open position is zeroed. The half stop is basically 4 thousandths, maybe just a tiny bit under. And the open position is in the same spot, just under 4 thousandths, which that is just fine. When it comes to this stage, patience is key. As soon as you take a little too much off, then you're running in circles trying to match everything back up. So next, I will go about showing how I set my back spring tension. Okay, once again, I'm starting to run out a little bit of time, so I will do my best to show this as quickly as possible. So, the open position, of course, we have zeroed out. We know, take the blade off real quick, we know if the black spring goes down, the needle goes down. So, of course, we want tension pressed against the tang of the pocket knife. So I'm going to move my dial indicator down to where it's reading 40 thousandths. Okay. Next, I will take my back spring off. I have a piece of painter's tape. I'm going to lay across right there. And then on my back spring, I have another piece that I'm going to put on the bottom side. And wrap around. And we will put the back spring back on. Now, I have some just El Cheapo super glue, which means the tip gets clogged up very easily. So I'm going to use this little wood shaving. I'm going to get my back spring out of the way, put super glue on the tape right there. It's actually a bit much, but anyhow. And now, if I can show this properly, I'm bring the back spring down till I touch the tang, and then I take the blade off and I bring the needle down to 0. Okay, I gotta stand up, and then I will press down on the back spring to super glue it to that tape. Okay, we're over at the drill press. This is super glued to where it needs to be. So I will just go ahead and set this whole contraption here on the drill press. Make sure I'm lined up. And commence to drilling the hole. Okay, now, since I used painter's tape, it's very easy to clean up. Just take the painter's tape off, and I have no super glue residue to clean up. And now I know that my hole is drilled 40 thousandths in that direction, and I will use this liner as a guide to drill the hole in the opposite liner. Anyways, that is all the time I have for this video. I do appreciate you stopping by and following along. In the next video, we will be starting to get the parts ground flush to each other and things of that nature. So once again, thank you all for following along, watching me make a basic slip joint pocket knife. Till y'all come back for the next video, y'all take care.